Hi guys, Lee here from FPL Family, and today we're going to be talking about the Seagulls, Brighton and Hove Albion. Many predicted that they'd be a bit of a yo-yo team actually when they first came up. Maybe they come up, come down, but actually have been fantastic since they've come into the Premier League. And actually, Potter has got them playing a certain way. There's a certain style about them now. And at time of recording, he is still their manager right now, although we don't know what's going to happen. Spurs and others that need a new manager sniffing around Graham Potter, as you would expect. But at time of recording, he is still manager of Brighton and Hove Albion. So let's talk about Brighton for the next 10 minutes or so. And in particular, I'm going to discuss why I think they were a bit unlucky to concede more goals than perhaps they should have. And maybe they should have scored more than they did as well. So why do we talk about Brighton as the XG team or the XGC team from last season? I'm going to discuss that using the Fantasy Football Scout members area in just a little bit. But before we get to that, let's talk about their fixtures. They're right up there. If you go to the Fantasy Football Scout ticker on the right-hand side of the page, if you remember, you can see that Brighton are right up there. So apart from Everton and Watford, if you sort the fixtures by difficulty, Brighton are there with Burnley, Watford, Everton, Brentford and Leicester in the first five. So the fixtures look pretty good for Brighton, both defensively and offensively, frankly. So they look worthy of investment. They really do. And I think when we get to other videos in this series and we talk about Norwich and Leeds and Southampton, maybe we'll say, well, from a fixtures perspective, we're steering clear. But certainly, I will be looking at some of these Seagulls for game week 1 because that is a fixture run that I think is worthy of investment. Let's talk about their players in just a sec. But as I mentioned before in the video, I'd like to discuss briefly why I think they were a bit lucky stroke unlucky last season. Probably more unlucky when it comes to XG and XGC. Expected goals scored and expected GC. Expected goals conceded. Let's jump into it. I'm going to go super small in the bottom right hand corner there because I thought the window here, this expected goals window from the Fantasy Football Scout members area, there's a lot of stats here, guys. It needed to be a little bit bigger, so I needed to be a bit smaller. So I've stuck myself down the bottom there. But actually, if I scroll through this window here and we start looking at some of these tables that the Fantasy Football Scout website has got, and again, if you remember, you can jump straight in and play around with this data from last season. There's also data from previous seasons as well, and you can have it set to all matches as I have here, or you can select certain matches, maybe just home, just away. You can slice and dice this data however you want. Really, really useful stuff for every single one of you FPL managers out there. And if you're not a member of Fantasy Football Scout, then there's a link in this description of this video, as there is with all of our videos, where you can join up and become a member of Fantasy Football Scout. So check that out after you've watched the video. But let's talk about XG here, guys. So expected goals scored. And what I want to do is just filter on, there we go, XG. So I want to click it again because, actually, no, I want to look at the delta. Actually, it's the delta that we need. It's the difference. That's what that triangle is. That means the delta. That's the difference between goals that a team actually scored versus goals that we expected them to score based on quality of chances, based on underlying stats, shots on target, getting into areas where you might expect their forwards and midfielders to score goals. So that's what that little triangle means, guys. And you might be able to see it on the yellow pop-up there. XG delta, goals minus expected goals. And if you look at Brighton, they are third on this list. So what's this data telling us? It's telling us that they scored 40 goals, 27 from open play last season. But actually their expected goals was 51. So 40 against 51. That leaves a delta of 11.46, which outside of Fulham and Sheffield United, which there's a whole nother video we could do about the story of those two teams and actually why their XG delta is so high. But Brighton actually coming in their third, way above Burnley in fourth. So actually, Brighton, were they a little bit unlucky not to score more goals last season? Perhaps they should have got more goals. Perhaps they need a more clinical striker. Perhaps they need a player that was going to tuck these chances away. They were certainly getting in the right areas, certainly creating enough chances with the likes of Trossard and Gross, but they just didn't have that finishing in the final third, and maybe they need a bit of an upgrade on Maupay. I don't know. Brighton fans, you can tell me what you think of Neil Maupay and others from an attacking perspective at Brighton from last season. But actually, this data suggests that they were a bit unlucky not to score more goals than they did. So let's talk about XGC now then, expected goals conceded. Let's move to the right-hand side of this table. And again, you see the little triangle here, right? So here's the triangle. Here's the expected goals conceded delta. So what's that telling you? That's saying how many goals did a team concede and how many should we have expected them to concede based on everything that went on in terms of underlying stats and all the things that I mentioned before. Were they giving away a lot of big chances? Were they letting the opposition in their box a lot? Were the opposition getting good quality big chances in front of goal? That's what XG delta is. It's the expected goals conceded delta. And again, if you hit on the little box there and sort it by XGC delta, you'll notice, interestingly, maybe this is for the Southampton video, Southampton right up there, but second, Bournemouth. Not Bournemouth, Brighton. Bournemouth. So last season and the season before, 2 seasons ago. Brighton right up there. And what this is telling you is they actually conceded 46 goals, but they actually were expected to concede only 35. So they conceded 10 more than the statistics suggested that they should. So what does that actually mean? What's the narrative behind that data? The narrative is perhaps they can keep more clean sheets. Perhaps they should be, and maybe they can, keep more goals out this season than they did last season. If the underlying statistics bear out and if they continue to perform in the way that they did defensively last season, you would expect, based on this data, that they keep a few more clean sheets. They were a bit unlucky, this suggests, to concede 46 goals last season. So, from that perspective, what are we saying? We're saying they're a bit wasteful up front, they're not very clinical, they miss a lot of chances, but at the same time, they're letting in, not lucky goals from the opposition, but they're just a bit unlucky not to have kept more clean sheets. So, I'm expecting an improvement defensively. And to be honest, I don't know what to expect in terms of offensively from Brighton. Should they improve? Perhaps they should. They need a more clinical striker. Maybe they can get more minutes out of Danny Welbeck at 6 million in FPL. I don't know. Maybe Neil Maupay finds his shooting boots a bit more often and avoids injury a bit more than he did last season. We'll talk about the forwards in just a sec. But from my perspective, I want to talk about the defence, because the defence is where I think a lot of my FPL initial pounds are going to be spent, particularly when you consider those first 5 for Brighton, as we said earlier on in the video. They look good, the first 5 fixtures. So let's have a look at their players, and you'll notice that Sanchez is top of the shop there, 4.5, 101 points last season. I think he is a fantastic goalkeeper pick, and that's not going to be news to many of you out there. If you follow any of our blogs on Twitter, Instagram, you've been watching our videos so far on the channel this summer, you'll know that Sanchez, he's in my team, pretty sure he's in Sam's team, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be highly selected by FPL managers coming into the new season. Not only could you have him in as a 4.5 first choice goalkeeper, and maybe put Steele in there with him as well at 4.0, so that you're only spending 9.5 on your goalkeepers. If you want to go uber budget, that's the way to go. However, if you wanted to link Sanchez up with another 4.5, then you could absolutely do that as well. And if you check out some of our other videos, we'll talk about goalkeeper rotation, who you might want to pair with him. I think Brighton actually do pair quite nicely with Leeds. Unfortunately, Leeds have got Meslier, who's 5. If he was 4.5, I think that would be the starting 2 goalkeepers for pretty much FPL team going into the new season. Elsewhere, Dunk, we know carries a bit of goal threat as well, but at 5 million, is he a little bit too expensive? I don't know. Veltman from last season should see more game time as well. Again, he's pretty versatile, can play either at wing back or at centre half, so he should get some game time. Ben White is one really to look out for, guys, because Ben White, at time of recording, is a Brighton player, but again, is on the watch list of Arsenal and others, and looks like he might be making a move this summer. So if we could get an Arsenal defender, a starting Arsenal defender at 4.5 in Ben White, maybe he's one to have a look at. Even if he stays at Brighton, he's worthy of consideration. Let's talk about the midfielders and the forwards. Is there much to choose from here? Trossard, 5 goals, 6 assists and 15 bonus points last season. So he's top of the shop in terms of midfielders and points amongst midfielders and forwards for Brighton with 132 points last season. Gross coming in at 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 bonus points. Again, a bit unreliable from an injury perspective. So if you were going to pick one of those two, Trossard is probably the one. And if you want to go 4.5 and just stick Bissouma in there as a bit of bench fodder in your midfield, if that is your strategy to have 4 big hitting midfielders, and maybe you're looking to go for the 3 up front because there is some good value in that front line in FPL this year, maybe Bissouma comes in as your 5th midfielder at 4.5, 77 points last season, plenty of minutes played. And actually, he's got a bad disciplinary record as well. Picks up the yellow card, but he plays minutes. And at 4.5, that's all you can ask for. Up front, I think there is far better value elsewhere at 6.5 in Ivan Toney. Or if you can go up to 7.5 with Ollie Watkins or somebody like that, that's where to spend your money. I don't think I'll be investing in Maupay. And unless I can see a bit more consistency from Welbeck, I don't think I'm going there at 6 million either. So for me, it's defensively, based on the nice fixtures that Brighton have to start the season, based on the fact their XGC Delta suggests if they can continue that defensive form from last season, they should concede less goals. That should mean more clean sheets for their defenders. So Sanchez is a lock in my team, and I may well double up. Have a look at Ben White if he stays there. Of course, Lamptey's going to be back on people's radars if he's fit for the beginning of the season, with the amount of time he spent in the opposition box and the amount of time he spent flying down those wings and getting assists at the beginning of last season. So Lamptey comes back onto the radar. And of course, Ben White. Watch out for him, not just at Brighton, but if he moves to Arsenal as well. There we go, guys. A quick 10 minutes on Brighton. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Is Sanchez locked in your team, or are you looking elsewhere for your goalkeeper pick? And do you fancy anybody from midfield or forwards? Maybe Maupay, Trossard, Gross. These guys I don't think are going to be highly owned come game week 1. But Brighton do have the fixtures to get off to a fast start. And if Potter stays or if Potter goes, does that affect your thinking? I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, guys. Plenty more FPL video content coming at you here on the FPL Family YouTube channel between now and the big kickoff. Leave us a like before you go, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.